5,000 years ago, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was completely unpredictable, a chaotic floodplain. Every spring, massive surges of water violently washed over the flat, defenseless terrain of southern Mesopotamia. These rivers carried thick, nutrient-rich silt. If harnessed, the agricultural potential of the water was staggering. But the floods were notoriously erratic, arriving without warning and wiping out entire settlements. These early settlers faced a brutal reality. They either had to engineer a way to control that thin lifeline of water together or succumb to starvation in an otherwise unforgiving desert. Surviving this harsh geography forced scattered farming villages to organize. Digging and maintaining these large-scale irrigation canals required thousands of people to act as a single, coordinated workforce. The effort paid off. By cutting networks of trenches through the dry earth, they diverted the spring floods into reservoirs and fields, turning it into a massive grain factory. This chart shows the result, a staggering surplus of barley and wheat. With reliable food, population numbers spiked. Small farming outposts quickly expanded into sprawling, densely packed settlements. Soon, places like Uruk held tens of thousands of residents. For the first time in human history, people were living in megacities. But this new scale created a logistical nightmare. In a village of 50 people, elders can track who contributed labor and who took a share of the grain from memory. But in a massive city of 50,000, oral traditions completely collapse under the crushing weight of the data. If officials couldn't distribute the grain or settle thousands of property disputes, the entire society would tear apart. To survive, these early Sumerians had to invent administrative systems that matched the ambition of their physical irrigation networks. The solution centered on the temple complex. These towering, tiered structures served as administrative hubs where the wealth was gathered, measured, and redistributed. Managing this wealth required strict organization. A rigid social hierarchy emerged. Kings and high priests directed the economy from the top. Specialized scribes managed accounts in the middle, and laborers worked the fields at the base. To keep this massive workforce motivated, the state relied on a powerful theology. Citizens were taught that the gods owned the land, and humans were created solely to serve them by maintaining the canals and tending the crops. This social pyramid was a highly functional blueprint. It allowed city-states to mobilize and feed the massive armies of laborers keeping the irrigation economy running. But even with a strict hierarchy, administrators needed a way to securely record the endless daily transactions of taxes, rations, and trade debts. Scribes found their solution in the mud beneath their feet. Using a sharp, wedge-shaped reed, they pressed marks into wet clay tablets, permanently capturing information before the surface dried. This clay tablet functions like an early spreadsheet. Notice how literal pictures, like a sheep, evolved into abstract, wedge-shaped cuneiform symbols. By linking quantities with recipient symbols across the grid, scribes locked down a logic of debt that could be verified miles away. This invention gave Sumerian administrators the processing power they needed to prevent their massive city machine from collapsing into economic chaos. With the data recorded, administrators still faced the math of dividing thousands of liters of grain and hundreds of labor hours into exact equal shares. This school tablet displays their mathematical solution, a specialized numbering system built around base 60. 60 is brilliant because it divides perfectly into halves, thirds, quarters, fifths, sixths, tenths, and twelfths. You can split a resource in any direction without messy fractions. Scribes applied this sexagesimal math to everything. They used it to calculate the exact area of massive, irregularly shaped farm fields and to weigh out heavy shipments of imported copper. This mathematical engine powered urban logistics, allowing the state to distribute finite resources fairly and predictably across huge populations. As populations continued to swell, fertile irrigated land became incredibly scarce. Rival city-states formed heavily armed infantry units, like the tightly packed phalanx seen here, and engaged in constant grinding warfare over border territories. Yet the real threat was environmental. Centuries of aggressive irrigation caused the water table to rise, leaving behind salt deposits that slowly poisoned the soil and decimated crop yields. Weakened by starvation and war, the Sumerian cities were eventually overrun by neighboring empires. But the conquerors didn't burn the bureaucratic systems, they adopted them. The physical cities crumbled, but their methods of taxation, record-keeping, and legal organization became the standard for every civilization that followed. We still live with the ghosts of Sumer. Every time you track a 60-second minute, measure a 360-degree circle, or sign a legally binding contract, you are relying on their frameworks. By solving the logistical nightmares of the desert, the Sumerians engineered the conceptual framework that still powers the modern world.